see right there. And now I have to share my screen. Share screen, we got her. So welcome everybody to the first, I guess, Zoom summit that I've ever hosted. It's a program that I've run in various formats for the last, call it 15, 16, 17 years. This is a Zoom friendly guest presentation. I'm used to having a full audience of bright-eyed people eager to learn and to hopefully advance their careers. I usually start my sessions with one thought in mind, which is to think of your mind like a parachute. And that means that if a parachute doesn't open, you don't survive the jump out of the airplane. So you may hear some things you disagree with over the next 5 weeks, some things that are like, wow, okay, I'll try and implement that, but try and sit and have an open mind about what you're going to hear. My efforts are to help you and advance your career, because that's really what we're here for at Signatures, to support you guys in whatever career you'd like to build. This is built and designed for those folks that have at least done, call it 4 or 5 transactions, right up to folks that are doing 20, 30 deals a year. It's a bit of a proactive based system, so you'll have a charting system that has been sent to you through Matthew, where you're going to be able to track your proactive activities during the week. And what you're going to be doing there is exactly what I did when I sold real estate. So I got into the real estate industry in 1992. I was 22 years old, young guy, didn't have any credibility, didn't have any real life experience. I just come out of university, I'd studied psychology. And here I was looking at trying to build a business at such a young age. So being an athlete, I was a hockey player and a baseball player. I always like to have goals and targets. So I designed this kind of system, and I've taught this system to a lot of people over the years, even when I was a realtor, just trying to track what it looks like every week in your business. Because of course, what happens in our business, we get so busy, we forget about doing the activities that we need to do to generate the income that we want. And so this kind of keeps you on track. And what it also does is it's a mechanism that allows you to say, hey, at the end of the week, I may not have sold a property, I may not have signed a buyer up in a buyer agency agreement, or I may not have gotten a listing agreement, but I did 500 activities based upon these points. And I know that over time, the compounding effect of all these activities will bear fruit for my business. And so it was a method for me to track that and to give myself kind of some pat on the back at the end of the week or end of the month. Quite frankly, there's months sometimes that as a young realtor, I went without doing a trade. So it was for me as an athlete, a way to keep on track. So hopefully you'll all find this valuable. Today's day is, I call it Foundations of Business Planning, but it's also a bit of an assessment effort and exercise. I've laid in a couple of questionnaires in the beginning part, and they're basically a byproduct of my master's thesis. So I went back to university in 2004. I had sold for 12 years and did my master's thesis on real estate. So I did a thesis called Performance Predictors for Realtors, and I researched literally hundreds and hundreds of top performers and was able to get a lot of data. They went into the Excel files and stat files that they had at the university, and we were able to regurgitate some data and some stats. And so I brought some of the questionnaires and surveys that I'd used in that thesis to help you guys kind of identify maybe some blind spots in your business right now. So if we'll go to the first slide, and hopefully everybody's got their workbook. If you do not have a workbook, just reach out to Matt. Well, I've already got a problem here, technology. Oh, there we go. Reach out to Matt, and Matt will send you that as a digital file. And for anybody that has signed up, we do have pre-printed copies here at the front desk at Mississauga and Don Mills. So if you've signed up, they're there for you just to be picked up if you need be. Okay, so right into it. First question, and these are for you guys, right? There's no right or wrong answer. These are you personally. Why did you get into the real estate business? And could be one reason, could be 2, could be 5, could be 10. I'll share with you one of the reasons why I got into the business. I'll share you 3. One was obviously to make money, right? We're not a charity in this business. So I wanted to earn a living. And I wanted to earn a living that had an unlimited ceiling of income potential. And I also wanted to be, at 22 years old, my own boss. So those may be, shared by you. There may be others. I'll share with you today the reason why I stay in real estate is those reasons, of course, but also now I have a family. I have a wife and 2 kids. I have 2 dogs that cost me a few dollars, and a cat. So I stay in the business to help support my family. So why did you get into the real estate business, and why is this important? It's the thing that's going to ground you, and it's going to bring you back to the reasons why you're out at, say, 11 o'clock on a Saturday night working on a transaction. You really have to have that why. Simon Sinek talks about that in his book. But this question, I've always had that question in the back of my mind for 20 years. Why am I doing what I'm doing? So hopefully you've come up with 1 or 2 there. Next question. It's interesting. We're probably thinking, what does this mean? Why do I sell the way do I do? And I want you to think of it from 2 paradigms. One, you're a hunter seller or you're a farmer seller. So the hunter seller salesperson is proactive. They're out. They're finding the next lead. The farmer is the one that's planting seeds and nurturing those. Now, there's no right or wrong answer here. And quite frankly, if you asked me 20 years ago what I was a hybrid. I was a bit of both, right? And that may be you as well. But it'll help identify, where maybe there's areas of opportunity for you to work on, where maybe you're a little weak on the hunting phase, or you're a little, weak on the farming phase. Third question. This is going to require some empathy on your part. What does it feel like to be a client of mine? Put yourself in your client's shoes. Are they satisfied? Are they happy? Are they a little disappointed? Only you know that answer. No right or wrong answer again. But what does it feel like to be a client of mine? Next question. What do I want to accomplish? That's a big, broad statement, right? What do I want to accomplish? Well, it could be in our business, the highest award level in Royal LePage. It could be I want to be a Chairman's Club realtor. Fantastic. Put that down. Or maybe it's I want to be a President's Gold realtor. Fantastic. Put that down. Maybe it's I want to accomplish those things where I free up time. So I generate a income that is almost a passive income that I generate out of a database that I've nurtured over the years. So I want to be able to 5 years, 10 years from now, not have to be that hunter salesperson. And lastly, last question here. What changes can I make in my life to advance those answers that you had in the first 4 questions? What changes can I make? Could be really simple. Get up earlier in the morning. You can accomplish a lot. I get up at 6:30 every morning. House is nice and quiet, and I'm able to accomplish more things. Of course, I got 2 dogs there, but they're okay. But you can accomplish so much in the morning before the rest of the world wakes up. That's a small change in your life. It could be as simple as I'm going to call 1 extra person for the next 5 days, in the next 5 days for the next month or 2, and see how that multiplies and compounds to the betterment of your business. So what changes can I make in my life? Next one. This comes from a survey from NAR. NAR is the National Association of Realtors. It's the American version of the Canadian Real Estate Association. They surveyed 15,000 realtors, and this is some of the data that came out of one of their questions. And it looked at and observed what's the typical realtor, successful realtor doing in a day. So 15% of those realtors are engaged in some type of assorted chore. So your mindset now is to compare yourself a bit to these realtors that they surveyed. What does that look like? Well, that's I have to do paperwork, admin work, follow up. So 15% of our day is consumed with that activity. 8% engaged in some form of email and social media. This survey was done a number of years ago. My suspicion is that number is actually going to be a little bit higher because social media has taken such a forefront now in our industry. Here's the 2 important ones though. 35% of successful realtors surveyed engage every day in some form of prospecting, and 20% engage in some form of activities for appointments. That's for listings and or buyers. Then 22% engage in web searching. That's work and of course personal. You know, we always get those funny videos on YouTube with the cat, you know, meowing or something like that. We always have to watch that. What does that look like though from us average realtors right now? Well, there's challenges, and it's painful for us to look at this challenge, but if we are out of line with these types of numbers, well, we got to figure out how do we get in line with that. So the biggest challenges would be these ones I've added here: prospecting, time management, maintaining your database. This is the big one I love: mindset and psychology. What are we taking in every day in our mind and our psyche? Is it garbage or is it gold, right? We have to filter out the garbage, because if we don't, that becomes the reality in which you operate every day. And then just your simple organization. Now, if I was to ask you to take one of those out and say you could never use that as an excuse going forward, I'm going to ask you to take out time management, because that's the biggest excuse as a broker I ever hear. I don't have enough time. And that's not an excuse that really I think is valid in today's world. What it is we're not aligned with our organization, our mindset, maintaining a system. We're going to talk a little bit about systems, but look at those challenges and remove time as the challenge that you're not going to encounter going forward. Do not let time be the inhibitor to your success. Here's a little assessment tool that I sent out during my thesis. So I wanted to assess an ideal realtor with the realtors that I was assessing. So the first three in my PowerPoint here are in green. I think in your workbook, they're in red. Those are the top three that I believe are the most important things that we do in the business of real estate. And so what I want you to do is look at the question on a scale of 1 to 10, put a number there for the ideal realtor. Now that could be anybody. You may have the ideal realtor in your mind right now that you know it's its signature, or you've seen them, you know, on TV, Serhant maybe, whoever. But the ideal realtor, what is their ability on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, in lead generation and prospecting, and what is your number? Are you a 10? Are you a 7? Be honest with yourself. There's no right answer. All we're trying to do is help identify some blind spots and weak points in our businesses. So lead generation and prospecting. We used the last slide and said, well, 35% of successful realtors, their day looks like that. So that would be 2.5 to 3 hours a day. That's the ideal realtor. I'm going to give that person a 10. Well, I'm doing maybe 1 hour or 1.5 hours. Maybe I give myself a 5 or 6. Question 2 would be booking the appointment. So we've generated all these leads, but the next most important thing we need to do is to book a face-to-face, well, in COVID, Zoom face-to-face meetings if we're doing that, but booking an appointment with that prospect, that seller, that buyer. What does the ideal realtor look like? He gets 10 prospects and he gets 10 appointments. Well, he's going to get a 10 out of 10. What's your number look like? Signing the contract. That's getting somebody committed to you, getting them on paper. So as a buyer, that looks like getting a buyer representation agreement. If it's a listing, it's either getting an exclusive listing to start or an MLS listing. These first three items are the most important items, I believe, in our business. Generate the lead, book the appointment, and close on a contract. Number 4, developing a plan for a client. What I mean by that is everybody wants special individualized attention and care. I don't want the plan that you've used for 10 other people, because I'm not one of those 10 other people. I'm Mike Kennelly, and you are your own individual. You want a tailor-made plan for that individual client. And that's what I did in my business. Everybody got a specific plan. And I tailor-made it basically to their personality. So if I was dealing with, for instance, an engineer, Well, those are very analytical people. They want to see timelines, right? Because in their business, if they're building a building and they don't do it properly, the building collapses. So I was very analytical with that type of person. Some people are very visual people. They want to see pictures. So you develop a plan and pictures for those people. So how good are you at that? Number 5, taking control. What does that mean? Well, you're the professional. You're the one that has the license. You're the one that's in the trenches every day. How easily, though, are you allowing a consumer, client, prospect to control the situation? Well, you know, the market's going up, the market's going down, the interest rates are up, the interest rates are down, it's snowing, it's too sunny. Letting them control the conversation. How good are you at bringing them back to the conversation, which is focusing it on what they want, what they need, using that plan you've created for them. Number 6, your ability to qualify. Well, that looks like 2 things. On a selling side, do they have the equity perhaps in the property? Meaning, is there enough to pay the fees that we're promising to the other brokerage and you're looking to acquire yourself? In this market, I dare say that most sellers that have owned their home for even a year, they have equity in the home just because of the virtue of what the markets have escalated. But let's say if the situation was reversed, we were in a situation where the market's gone down 10, 15, 20%. These are things that we'd have to do. We have to qualify. Is this even a bona fide listing to take? On the buyer's side, you know, if the buyer has a 500 Beacon score, has a whole bunch of R9s on their credit bureau, it's probably not a bona fide buyer that you want to be working with. So how good are you at qualifying? Number 7, ability to persuade. And this is in a very positive sense, folks. We're not talking about persuading people to do things that are not in their best interest. This is the ability to persuade people and direct them into the right choices because you've created a platform for them in a scenario and a plan that is in the end going to be the right thing for them. Number 8, effectively negotiate terms, but put in brackets 2 big ones: price and closing. Price being the number 1, and I could also put in probably commissions or fees. Those are their 2 biggest negotiating items that we face as realtors. One of the courses that we'll have here in the program at the Summit is a course actually on negotiation. So we'll go through some techniques on that as well. Number 9, client service. In the short term, what I mean by that is you've got a hot buyer or a hot seller. What are you like dealing with them in the service level in that short term? And my guess, we're all 10s out of 10s on this. We're in the service business. I have no doubt in my mind that everybody's a 10 out of 10 here. Where I have doubt, though, is in number 10. And I was guilty of this early in my career as well. Managing the client on the medium and long term. Medium means once they've closed on the transaction. So as the seller, they've closed, keys are transferred to the buyer, or on the buying side, they've got the keys, they're now walked in as the buyer. How good are you at keeping and managing a service level with those folks post the transaction? And I was very bad in the early part of my career until I had the epiphany to say, hey, I should focus in on those folks that have already used me, bought and sold with me, like me, love me, and are basically walking, talking billboards for me, that there's real value in staying in touch with those folks. So what does your number look like, and what does that ideal realtor look like? What you'll come up with is a grade. Only you're going to have the grade. If you want to share with me, by all means, I can add you to my database of the now, I guess, thousands of realtors I have in a database, unnamed. It's anonymous, but you just become part of the forum. If you want to email me your questions and answers, by all means do. You can send it through the links that Matt has been providing, and it'd be helpful for me too, because I do look at these things and do chart it over time. So hopefully that was a worthwhile effort for you, and hope to expose a little bit of the maybe blind spots that we may be encountering in our business. Next, what is your job? I love this question. And I asked this question when I had my own brokerage, when I interviewed people that were looking at coming into the business or that were looking to transfer. This is one of the first questions I'd ask them. What is your job? Well, my answer to that is every day In the business of real estate, you wake up unemployed. Therefore, the job of a realtor is to generate leads. End of story. That's really your job. I've had debates with people about that. Well, we got to do this, we got to do that. Great, I understand that. We got to provide customer service. We got to be good negotiators. We got to be good objection handlers. We got to be good presenters. All these things are amazing skills that we all have to have, but we cannot deploy those skills unless we have somebody in front of us. Does that make sense, everybody? And I add this little line here. Consider what a mining company does to find gold or diamonds. They have to excavate a lot of rock before they hit pay dirt. Now, if you look at a company that's in the, say, gold sector like Barrick Gold, a lot of their resources are dedicated to the excavation phase. And there's a lot of energy, a lot of money that goes into that for a little 1 ounce piece of gold. This is what we do, folks. We are going to come up with a lot of prospects that are not going to be the gold or diamonds we're looking for. The quicker you can cycle through those types of people, the better off your business will be. And this is really one of the turning points in my career. It's probably about 95, 96, after spending thousands and thousands of dollars on training programs, where it was, again, another aha moment. Hey, listen, I'm better off working with people that have a belief in me, a trust in me, and have an ability and are bona fide as buyers or sellers, because I'm not a miracle worker. And I used to tell realtors when I was selling, listen, you're not a magician. You're not David Copperfield. You're not going to pull that rabbit out of the hat. So it's better to work with those that can work with you and are bona fide buyers. Next, systems. Geez, I hated systems. Like, I am not a systems guy, but in one of those training programs I took, I never forgot these words this trainer said. Systems, like McDonald's, are so critical to any functioning business. And he described what McDonald's looked like, that they had a manual about how to make a French fry or a milkshake or a burger. And they had to do it the same way over and over again. And, you know, hearing that story 20 odd years ago, I took it to heart. And then a few years ago, I saw the movie The Founder with Michael Keaton, where he plays Ray Kroc, the guy that kind of took the franchise idea of McDonald's and took it nationally, then globally. And sure enough, in that movie, they show just how systemized that business ran. And you guys are running a business, your individual business. The better you are at creating that system, and to me, I'd rather go to a dentist before I start creating systems, but I know it's so important to do, because once it's in place, it's a set it and forget it type of thing. So what does it do? I've wrote down a couple of things. A system will create more efficiency in your business. It creates more consistency in your business. And so some of you may know that I enjoy kind of doing the arbitration, the court case stuff, the professional standard stuff. I can tell you that if you have a system in your business, that you run it the same way, every time, that if you are ever having to account for your behavior in front of, say, RICO or in a court, being able to show a RICO investigator or a judge, this is how I've done my business. In fact, here's 10 people that I've worked with. You can call them. I do describe the working with the realtor form. I do go over the buyer agency agreement. Here's 10 people that can testify to that. If you don't have that in place and you get one of those complaints, it's very nerve-wracking, because now you're being told that, hey, you may be unethical, and you now have to substantiate that. Having that system, very helpful. That's with the compliance side as well. And here's the other big word, differentiation. Believe it or not, most realtors do not run systems. They are just running day to day and hoping that a lead drops on their lap and that they can go out and sell a transaction. So when you put one in place, you've already differentiated yourself from the masses. The stat is still probably very true today, that in the first 2 years, about 80 to 85% of all those newly minted licensed realtors are out of the business. And I say, what a shame. You know, maybe they didn't align with the right brokerage. Maybe they weren't the right fit for our industry. I don't know. But maybe they didn't put a system in place. Maybe they didn't have the right plan for their business. So today, you know, we're helping you guys maybe do a bit of a reset, as I said earlier. It's the parachute mind. Keep an open mind here, and maybe there's one or two things I say today that can trigger a change in your business that'll transform your business into going from maybe President's Gold to Platinum or whatever it is that you're looking for. Our next sphere of influences. This is called many things. So I used to call it just my relationship list. In fact, I think that's what Buffini calls it as well, Brian Buffini. And here's what we need to do with sphere of influence, because I believe today, tomorrow, 5, 10, 15 years from now, that it's the relationship business that still will drive the prospects and business of our industry. Yes, technology, yes, social media, that does and will continue to take away a little bit from this relationship business. But believe me, I think the relationships will still be the #1 driver in 10 or 15 years. So what do? Well, we create a list of all the people we know. And that's going to be a big list, huge list for some of us. Then we take that list and break that list down into more manageable bite-sized pieces. We've got A+, A, B, C, and D. This actually grew out of the 1980s in America. A lot of business theorists and scientists came up with this segmentation of their clientele. So this is not actually something that, let me just move this over here, that say Brian Buffini came up with, although he has used this for sure, but corporate America came up with this segmentation back in the 80s. And an A+ client would be somebody that is your best advocate. They're a billboard for you. Now, I maybe had only 10 of those types of people in my database, but those are the 24 karat gold clients of yours. And A is somebody that will always use you, they'll always refer you, but you just got to stay kind of in touch with you, and in touch with them, and kind of nurture them. A B is somebody who may use you or may not use you. Your goal, by the way, in this system of when you categorize them, is to move people up in this food chain. A C is not likely to use you. And so, those are the folks that you're going to sit on the edge and decide whether or not you want to take the risk and work with them. A D is somebody, and I'll use Buffini's term, it's a delete. You get rid of them. They become something that you remove from your business model. Now, when you write this list down, as I said, maybe you have 100, 200, maybe you have 20 people to start with. I don't know. Just look at those names and look at them very seriously and honestly with yourself and put that letter. Now, here's the thing, don't go and tell them you've done this, because they're not probably going to appreciate that if you've labeled them a C or put them as a D. But figure out what they look like. And my advice to you is spend your time and your money and all your efforts on the higher category people, your A+ and your A's with a little bit of your B's. Investing in those people will return the largest benefit to you long-term in your business. All you're looking for, let's use some simple math here. If you have 20 people in that database, statistically, each one of us, believe it or not, know 2 to 3 people every year that are going to buy or sell real estate. So if you have a database of 20 people, there's potentially 40 to 60 referral opportunities directly from them, not including them actually using your service system specifically. So by focusing in on these A+ and A's, there's where if you're Barrick Gold, that's where you've identified as your gold mine. That's the pit that you're going to start to dig in, as opposed to the pit that everybody's trying to dig in, which is just, a place where there's going to be a lot of rock. There's going to be not a lot of benefit to you and bona fide buyers. Number 3, qualifying that list, as we just described. Number 4, develop consistency and habits to maintain and grow. So once you've identified whether it's 20 to 200 or more, your goal is to add to that database. It's not a stagnant database. By the way, it's also good to call that database. I used to call it weed and feed when I had my database. So I'd go in and do a little bit of weeding. Maybe somebody was a B or C and they all of a sudden became a D, or they went and bought with somebody else. It does happen. Well, they became, a D in my database. But I was constantly looking to add to the database. It was never stagnant, never. Number 6, big question. What is your sphere of influence? Now I put in brackets what mine were. Just gonna grab a water here. Hockey and baseball. Within the 4th or 5th year of my business, I would hazard a guess that 60 to 70% of my revenue in business came from these 2 sectors. And what did that look like? Well, I became a hockey coach, became a sponsor. I joined the executive of these organizations. And every year I'd have 18 new families in the summer for baseball and 18 new families in the winter for hockey. And I just cultivated those people. Not everybody, was going to use my kennel. I got that. Some of them had friends and family that were in the business. I got that. But every year I had this great group of people who then, the ones that were, an A+ or B in my database, they would talk about me to the point where I had grown my business. I said 60 to 70% was generated from that source. So imagine my cold calling or hot or warm calling was done in hockey arenas or baseball diamonds. How fun, cool was that for me? Because I was not, somebody that enjoyed knocking doors, although I did do knocking on doors, right? But what is your sphere of influence? So you may be interested in biking or running. I know realtors that are big runners and they network through that organization. So what is it that you really enjoy doing? Because in those worlds, you're the most natural, calm person that you're ever going to be. And those people already know you. They most likely already trust you. So can you, generate some leads and prospects out of there? And my answer would be absolutely. Other question. What do you like to do in hobbies and volunteering? Maybe like what I did, the hockey, right? It was both hobbies and volunteering. Where do you spend your money? This is something that I had to analyze my business because I was a guy that also had a farm, a big farm, spent a lot of money. Every week I would pay Canada Post back then. Boy, I wish we could go back to this number, but 6.5 cents was what I had to pay for my unaddressed mail to Canada Post. And I think my cost was maybe 5 or 6 cents a flyer. So let's round it up and say 12 cents per piece is what I put into the community every week. And I did that for 2 years. And I generated business, but it wasn't the ideal source of business for me. So when I looked at where I was spending my money, I made a decision, take it away from there, put it into the database, the A+, A's and B's, and I started hosting events. I used to do movie theater buyouts, and we'll talk about that in a later session. But where do you spend your money? Next slide, if we can get this thing going. There we go. Sphere of influence, create, identify. Everyone you know by first name, so you identify them. Number, qualify and start. What would they work with you? That's a tough question to ask. Some people you think absolutely they will, and then they turn out and go work with somebody else. I had that happen many times. Don't let that get you down. Just move on, go forward. It's going to occur to everyone, the best of us. In fact, I'll tell a story. My youngest brother, I was down in Florida on vacation with my family. I came back to find out my youngest brother had purchased a property with another realtor. Well, that was a smack in the face that made that Christmas a little bit uncomfortable. But you get over it, you move on. And if I was relying upon only my brother's transaction that year, yes, I would be devastated. But thankfully, I wasn't. Communicate. What is your plan for 30 to 36 touch points a year? Now, what does that look like? A touch point can be a simple phone call. A touch point could be using our done for you marketing pieces, getting something in their hand from you on Canada Day, or for Halloween or Thanksgiving, whatever it looks like. It could be a face-to-face visit. Buffini calls them pop-bys. These are great things. Go and physically see people once we're out of COVID, of course. It could be an email to them. It could be a bomb video. There's so many techniques and ways we can do that, but the goal would be to connect with your database 30 to 36 times over the course of the year. You may think that's a little bit too much, and scale it back to 24, and that's fine. That'd be 2 times a year that that database, those contacts of yours, relationships, would be hearing from you. One of the good things I used to do was on the anniversary of the sale of a property, I would do an anniversary CMA for folks. And so what you're going to see in my proactive activities is one of those categories is every year doing a CMA for your client. Now, maybe you don't have, more than say 5 or 10 past clients that have moved in. Well, then do it for your whole database. Just do a free CMA, courtesy one, to let people know what their house looks like in today's environment. And believe it or not, it's going to be a great storyline because the market has increased by 15, 20% in the last year or so. They're going to enjoy hearing that story. Definition of business planning. This was part of my thesis. This is what I said about business planning. It's the continuous process of making deliberate and systematic choices to predict with the greatest certainty the future viability of your business. So the words in red were the verb type words. Continuous means you make a plan. It doesn't then sit on your shelf, never to be looked at again. It's something you want to continually revisit and modify and perhaps edit. Making deliberate or specific decisions about your business. And that could look like the amount of money you want to make, the amount of sales you want to have, of course, when you make sales and make money, we do this thing called pay taxes, which I remember talking to one realtor years and years ago. I said, "No, listen, I don't want to make any more money because I have to pay more taxes." And I thought that was just an absurd reality. Hey, let's pay taxes because that means we made more money. Although it's, we can argue about how they spend that money. That's another story. Systematic choices to predict. And this is what we're trying to do with your plan. And each and every one of you will come up with your own plan. It'll all be different. There's 68 odd people on this course. There'll be 68 different plans here. And what you're trying to do in a year or 3 months or 6, whatever you want to look at it, what's your prediction of where I'll be in 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years? And I'll tell you, I do plans that are 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year. I used to do 10 year, but now with kids, I've scaled it back down to 5. But you really want to look at predicting where you are. And I'll let you know the one I did in 2004, 2014, 10 years later, I was wanting to own a farm. It didn't happen. Kids didn't want to go on a farm, so I'm still stuck in the city, but there you go. Viability, what does that word mean? That's the health of your business. Let me tell you, most realtors, and there's 60,000+ of them, believe it or not, in Treb, and about 90,000 in Ontario. Most businesses run by realtors are unhealthy businesses. If they had to pay every one of their bills and support a family on what they're doing, they wouldn't be able to do it. So that's not what we want for you guys. We want you guys to have healthy, viable businesses, and doing this business plan hopefully can help with that. I've used just put in the SMART system that Harvard University uses when you're thinking about doing your business plan. And so SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And in the plan that I've given you, and you'll see in the workbook and on the digital format, is a system that is very specific to your personal, professional, and marketing parts of your business. You'll be able to measure it every day if you want, every week, every month, every year. Set yourself some attainable and relevant goals. If right now you're making, say, $100,000, you're probably not being relevant if you're saying, I want to make $500,000 in the next 1 year. Listen, it's possible, but in my experience, unlikely. So make something that's very relevant and attainable. You're 100,000, let's say we'll make 150,000 the next year. And timely, let's put a time to that. 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, whatever, what it may be. Next one, this is actually the format, and Matthew, I believe, has sent this out to you. This is the Summit 52-week Proactive Challenge. Of course, this is for 5 weeks, but if you want, I encourage you guys to use this as a system in your business. And I created this, as I said earlier in my career as an athlete, so I could track everything that I did every day. So if you look at this first page, snapshot, I've identified a activity in one column. Next column, I've assigned a point to it. And so what we want to do is determine in a week, how many activity points do I want to attain? And so I would throw the challenge out 500 points per week for this type of group of realtors. I was doing between 2,000 to 3,000 a week at the peak of my real estate career. But let's start with 500 points is your goal. Now, this is in a digital format that you've been sent or will be sent. It's going to be able to track this. Matthew's going to give you a little bit of lesson at the end of this course today on how you actually will use this system, inputting your data. You can send it to me with your comments and whatnot. And what we've done is we've set up a color coding system for you, meaning anything that's 65% and below gets a red. Anything 65 to 75 gets a yellow. Anything 75 and above gets a green, meaning that, hey, you're heading towards that actual goal you set. So each one of these activities, and there's a whole host of them, there's another page of them. I think there's probably 30 to 40 of them in total with various points. And you'll notice that the points go in ascending value. So when I have for instance, a flyer at 0.25%, I don't have a very high value metric on something like that. It's a quarter of a point. So if you were, wanting to do 500 points in a week, you'd have to do a whole lot of flyers to be delivered. But I don't believe that that's the best, form of prospecting, putting flyers out there. So they ascend in order. A cold call in your church, you'll see what that is. That's somebody that has expressed absolutely no interest whatsoever in your services. Newsletters, papers, we do all that kind of stuff here for you. And then, as I said, they go in ascending order. They get higher as the activity is more engaging with that database that you have. So hopefully everybody understands the kind of concept. Matt will actually, as I said, go through how this works. He's volunteered to take your emails or calls if you stumble in how you fill in these kind of points for your system. But what I'd encourage and hope to see is that not only over the 5 weeks that we're going to be together that you use this, and you may say, I'm not using it. This is garbage. I don't want to try this. But my hope is that you do. So you get into a pattern for the next 5 weeks, and maybe it becomes a habit after the pattern. And then you can continue using this going forward, because this really formed the basis of my business. But the effort is going to have to be from you. The commitment is going to have to be from you if you want to do this. Now, putting in your actual attained points, again, it's a very personal thing. If you set a goal of 100 business cards or door knocks in that week, and you only do 25, but you put in 75, the only person you're going to cheat in that respect will be yourself. So, this is a very personal thing for you. It's a good way for you to keep yourself on track. I really, really hope that you'll all embrace this as it is. Our next slide, top-down planning. I believe Matt has already sent this to you. This is a great little Excel file that I received probably 21 years ago, or 20 years ago. And it's an Excel format where you can interplay different variables here. So if you look at the one section, it says on the left, income goal. So you just input an income goal that you want to look at. Total ends needed will generate based upon the average value of the end that you input there. So, this is an older file snapshot. This probably goes back about 7 or 8 years, where the average end may have been $10,000, but now our average end is probably double that. So you put in what you think your average end looks like. And then on the column where it says source of business is, you're going to determine individually where your sources of business you want to generate them from or derive them from. So for the example here, relationship database, that's your A pluses, your A's. In this situation, we have 4 transactions are going to come from that source, which would be $40,000 and represent 40% of that year's business. So hopefully that makes sense. You're able to modify this. It's not a protected file, so you can go in and manipulate it however you want. If there's a category that you want to add there that you don't see there, by all means, go and do it. This is your personal Excel file now. Work with it as you will, or put it in your delete category. It's up to you guys, but hopefully you use it. I use it still to this day. I think it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It came from an accountant actually in the business of real estate. So, and one of the cool things where it breaks it down actually to the working hours per day. I don't know if you can see that on the right side. It actually can break it down that minute detail about how many hours you can work. Now, I'm not here to say, hey guys, you can go out and make 100 grand and only work an hour a day. I mean, yes, it's possible, but truly that number is for a realtor that's got a database of hundreds of people already, and it's just kind of on a repetitive scale. But this top-down planning, Matthew sent it about an hour or so ago. It's going to be in your emails, and hopefully it's worthwhile to you. Next one, 6 C's of selling. This is part of my thesis. These are the big 6 things I always look at when we think of real estate. Number 1 is contact. What is that? Well, that's the business of real estate. Remember I told you, what's your job? Because you wake up unemployed, or your job's to go get leads. So contact, that's your lead generation activities. We just saw that in our program, the activities, the 500 goals we're going to have. Number 2, communicate. What method? Well, face-to-face, email, bomb, phone call, flyer, regular snail mail. Frequency, how often? Well, we said maybe we're going to look at 32 to 36 times a year. Maybe it's 24 times. Maybe it's 12. This is your choice. You pick the number. And what are we going to do in a communication? Well, we always want to help educate people. We want to be the voice and source of information for real estate. Because if we don't become the voice and source of real estate for our people that are in our database, somebody else will. And that could look like another realtor. That could look like the media. And believe it or not, the media don't like to write very positive stories sometimes about real estate. They get paid by people reading their headlines. So we want to step in the middle. We want to be that educated voice of real estate. Number 3 is converting. That's the booking appointments and meetings. And I've put a word in there called CETO. And CETO is an acronym. You can write this down in your workbook. It stands for Come Into Office. Come into office. This is a system that I learned from a trainer called Floyd Wickman. It's a little bit difficult to do that in a COVID environment, but outside of a COVID environment, this is meeting face-to-face with your buyer, or let's call it seller. In a seller perspective, you're going to their home, right? But in a buyer perspective, you want them to come into the office. If they're not prepared to come in and meet you face-to-face in your office for 1 hour, they're probably not a bona fide buyer. You may want to consider them to be a D on your system. Move on from them. Number 4, contract. That's getting them signed. That's in a buyer agency agreement. That's in a listing agreement. And they have a choice. They can be a client of yours or they can be a customer of yours. Of course, we'd like them to be a client because that's where we provide them with our fiduciary responsibility. You know, our good faith, our loyalty, our obedience, full accounting of our services. Those are some of the typical fiduciary responsibilities we have. Number 5, cash in. Well, this is your reward. This is the fee that you're earning to have done all this work and made these dreams come true for these buyers and sellers. And number 6, a charting system. Of course, this is part of our plan here too. This will give you this overlaid chart. This is a method for you to follow up in your own business and keep in touch with your database. So hopefully the 6 C's, if you look at it from that zoomed out perspective, that's really the zoomed out of what we do from A to Z in this business. Start to build your business. So what does that look like? Number 1, plan. A list of daily proactive activities to systemize the 6 C's of selling real estate. That includes your set of goals and budgets. So these budgets that we talked about earlier, the goals that you're going to set, we talked about earlier in the proactive challenge, you're going to plan these things out on a daily, weekly basis. Then you're going to work. You're going to plan a work schedule. What does your day look like? What does your week look like? Month, your year, 3-year and 5-year plan. Constantly review and adjust this. I always, when people come in and ask a question, one of the first questions, and if you ever do this with me, this will be one of the first questions I ask you. You come in, I'm struggling in my business. Can you help me out? And I'm here to help. Believe it or not, I am here and I got your back and I'll do whatever I can to advance your career. And one of the questions I'll always ask is, well, can you share with me what your work week looked like last week? So let's say today you came into my office, it's a Wednesday. I'll say, let's go back into the past, all of 10 days ago, and let's hear what you did last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of last week. And people sometimes struggle to tell me what that looked like. And to me, that's the aha moment they have. If they can't remember or they can't put a finger on what they did, that's identified the problem, that they actually don't have that system in place to say, well, on Monday I was at the gym. Every day I'm at the gym from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. From 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock, I'm on the phone prospecting with follow-ups, my database. And from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, I go for lunch. From 2 to 4, I'm back on the phone. From 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, I'm at home with my family. And then from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I'm out showing. That's somebody that's got a handle on their business and knows what their business is all about. And so, I threw that question out. And if you're sitting there going, God, if I ever walked in and asked Mike that question, he asked me that question, I'd struggle with the answer. Well, hopefully, it's tweaked something inside that says, well, maybe I got to put that plan in place instead of running day to day without a plan. Stay motivated. Your intake. What are you watching? What are you reading? And what are you listening to? You don't want to be taking in the garbage, as I said. There was an old saying back in the 80s for computers, garbage in, garbage out. Well, it's the same thing with our mind. We bring garbage in and allow that garbage to come in. That's what's going to be coming out of us. So we want to take the positive things. And our brokerage is renowned for this, where we have so many supportive, mentoring type realtors that will be there to support you and help you. I've been in the industry, as you know, now since '92. This is the best brokerage I've ever been involved with that element. So, if you ever need a lift, a pickup, there's so many of our realtors that are there available to help you do that. So take advantage of that. Once we're open and fully running again, come into the office. There's always 50, 60, 70 people circulating, and it's an amazing environment. It's inspiring. It's for me as a broker, I walk around and go, wow, this is an amazing company. So much energy that's being produced here. Where are we here? Oh, there we go. This is just a simple lead summary form. I used to keep one of these on my desk, and you can reproduce this yourself as well. Put it on your desk. If you ever struggle on what kind of questions to ask when you're generating a lead, or somebody calls in off of a sign, and you maybe haven't been practicing your dialogues and you're not up to scratch, as long as you have something on the side of your desk, just to direct and take control of that conversation. So these are just some simple questions, directing questions that you can use in your business so that you can advance and hopefully get that appointment with the client and the prospect. This is the actual slides of the expenses that we're going to look at, and we've broken them down into 3, and there are a couple pages in your book or in your digital file. And I look at it from 3 perspectives. One is your personal expenses, and a lot of these, unfortunately, they don't go away. But it's nice to have a handle on things like what's my loans, what's my mortgage, or maybe I rent a house. What's my food cost? Some people that eat out a lot would be shocked when they start to actually put down how much they spend in a week on eating out or on Uber Eats or one of these mobile kind of deliveries. It's amazing, quite frankly. And we look at the business expenses. These are generally fixed costs as well. These would look like your licensing fees with TREB, with Ortis, Boards, MREB or OMDREB. They would look like your RICO for your insurance, your annual dues, your CREA, your RIA. So these are kind of fixed costs. And in your business, you've also got your car, you'll have your insurance for your car, your gas, things like that. And then there's a section that's the marketing expenses. And these are discretionary expenses. These are expenses that you may or may not indulge it, and that's fine. But at least put them on paper so that you know, hey, on a monthly basis, I need to have $2,000 of after-tax dollars in my bank to cover my basic expenses. And if you want to have a savings program where you can contribute at the end of the year to maybe an RSP, then you're going to want to figure out, what do I need to generate every month so that I have that little extra left over. Again, these are the types of exercises that you may not enjoy. It's not my favorite thing to do either. But once you go through that exercise and put that on paper, believe it or not, you're going to have a beautiful roadmap to where you need to be every day, every week, every month, every year. These are some pretty cool words that if we use these words as opposed to the words that are written in your book, and now we can handwrite these in, they can change the dynamic of the conversations we're having with people. I'm a big firm believer in our business. We need to understand what words we need to use, how to use them, and when to use them. And that means that every day we should be practicing dialogues and making them so internal to who we are that they're natural. Because every conversation you're going to have in real estate is going to unfold essentially the same way. So let's use the first word. We have the word commission. This is the most commonly used word we say, and we've added a new word for you to use, a fee for service. Just put the word fee in there instead of commission. People hate to pay commissions. Cost or price. This is going to cost you $1.4 million. That's a harsh way of explaining it, as opposed to kind of smoothing it out and saying, hey, this investment will be $1.4 million. It's just the psychology we're using in the language that helps the prospect we're dealing with not be scared, basically. Down payment would be initial investment. Monthly payment would be monthly investment. Contract. We're sitting down there, we want them to sign the buyer agency agreement. Well, instead of calling it a contract, just call it the paperwork or the agreement. Buying versus owning. You want to own this property. People like to own things. People generally have a problem buying things because it has that cost associated with it. So we use the word own. 7, sell or sold. I'd like to get you involved or get them involved in this transaction instead of I'm going to sell you this or I'm going to get you sold on this idea. I'm going to get you involved in this investment with this initial, small minor number to get you involved in the purchase here. Deal. Instead of saying deal, say wonderful opportunity. Everybody likes to get a wonderful opportunity. People like to get deals too, but I think the word wonderful opportunity is a little bit better. Number 9, instead of saying the word sign, let's get them to, and I've got 4 of them here for you. Let's get you to okay the paperwork. Let's get you to approve the paperwork. Let's get you to authorize the paperwork. And obviously this is the one I used to use all the time because I was in the sport world. Let's get you to autograph the paperwork. Instead of using the word pitch, we can use the word presentation. I love this one. Number 11, problem. Instead of saying the word it's a problem, we use the word it's a challenge. No problem, Mr. Seller. This is a challenge, but this is a challenge that we'll overcome. People hate problems. I certainly do. Number 12, objections. Instead of them being objections, we're going to look at them as areas of concern. Let us figure out what those areas of concerns look like so that whatever the challenge may be, we'll be able to overcome that for you. Number 13, cheaper. I hear this word all the time. It's we throw it out there constantly. Instead of saying the word cheap, this is a more economical choice for you, Mr. Buyer. Who wants to own something that's cheap? I'd rather own something that's more economical. A customer, somebody that we serve. If we're in a fiduciary relationship, we definitely are serving that person. A looker, Well, we call them looky-loos or tire kickers, right? Instead of saying that, let's replace that, because it has such a negative connotation, with the word researcher. Put yourself in the shoes as a consumer. Aren't you going to the internet right away, Googling something and doing a lot of research and maybe phoning and asking questions? I bet you are, because I do. You know, when I bought my cars, I did that. Geez, when I buy a TV, I do that. Well, people are doing that in our business. Instead of looking at them with a negative lens and saying they're lookers, tire kickers, looky-loos, let's think of them as researchers, because then that's going to put us in the right frame of mind. Number 16, a prospect is a future client. And number 17, an appointment is our visit or pop by. Now here's a challenge I want to throw out to each and every one of you. Try and put together a paragraph of a, call it elevator speech, that you can do in 30 seconds or 45 using each and every one of these words in a conversation. And that's with the mindset that you're in the elevator, post-COVID, of course, and somebody says, "Hey, Mike, what do you do for a living?" Well, these types of words, I guarantee you can put together a 30 or 40-second paragraph that if you memorized it, that they'll walk away from that 30, 40-second elevator speech and go, "Wow, I've never heard a realtor say that before." And I've done this course, as I've said, for 15, 16, 17 years, and some of the stories and paragraphs I've heard from realtors blow me away. Now, it takes probably an hour or two to put that together, but once you put that together, whenever you're confronted with somebody asking you, "What do you do?" bang, it's coming out of you. It's natural. It's been practiced. It's been rehearsed. You know, the actor that goes on stage, you know, to deliver his lines, how many hours did that person practice to be able to be on message, to be delivering at the right time, to be at the right spot on the stage, to have his cues? That's what you need to do when that question gets asked, because you might only have that, 40 seconds, 1 minute, right? First impressions, that first minute, that's what you got. Types of questions for every types of situations. Is critical to know what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. These are some basically dialoguing, objection handling kind of techniques. And I'm throwing this out at you the first course. Why? Because I want you guys to use these going forward. And hopefully, in these situations, you're going to find yourselves in these conversations, that you have an avenue that you can discuss these things with these buyers and sellers. So number one would be a minor point. So if you're kind of stuck in a conversation with, say, like a seller, they're calling you and they just want to know what your fee is going to be. Like, that's all they care about. Well, using a minor point dialogue just to shift the conversation away from that could help. So something simple as, are you on the east side of ABC Street or on the west side? It's a method of just taking it away from what they're looking at, which is they want to know what you're going to charge, right? And of course, you should never, on that kind of question, give them a fee or a rate over the phone without seeing the property, right? That's just the basics. And we'll go over that in the objection handling negotiations courses that I run. Number two, this is called the alternative choice dialogue. And this is a great dialogue. I used to use this one with number three, the sharp angle, all the time. And it would be something like, when would a good time be to stop by? Would 8 p.m. tonight or tomorrow at 5 p.m. work? This is to close on your appointment. Again, it's called the alternative choice dialogue. It's booking the appointment, and it's giving the prospect two choices. People like choices in their life. Instead of saying, when would be a good time for me to come over, which is the natural question we always ask, and the most obvious answer we always get is, well, I don't know, I'll get back to you. Like 99% of the time, that's the answer they're going to give you. If you ask it this way, you have a much higher likelihood of being able to close on an appointment. So when would a good time be to stop by? Would tonight at 8 work or tomorrow at 5? Now, they may throw a curveball at you. They may say, well, I got to check with my wife before I do that. No problem. let me pencil you in for 8 o'clock tonight. And if you need to change because your wife needs to change it, give me a call, but you booked the appointment. So you say, no problem. Let me pencil you in, because of course, pencils, we can erase what we put in. Number 3, this made me a fortune. These simple words. If I could, ... would you? And it would be something as simple as, if I could show you how I could sell your house for more money than the competition, would you be interested in meeting with me? It's a question that any bona fide seller should answer with yes. I hope you agree with that. The answer is yes. Great. Then you go into the alternative choice dialogue. Fantastic. When would be a good time for me to stop by? Would tonight at 8 or tomorrow at 5 work? You pick the numbers. I just throw those out there for the slide, but you figure out what that looks like. If I could, would you? That could be used universally. There's so many different situations you'll find yourself in that you could use this dialogue. If you got kids, next time that the kids ask you for something, try that if you could, would you dialogue. I do it on my kids all the time, and they don't even know it. Number 4, tie down question. If we could agree on a price, would you let me handle the sale? This is going to be a question you're going to use at a listing. If we could agree upon the price, would you let me handle the sale? If you can't agree on the price, then you're taking a listing that it may not sell. Now, in this market, it may sell, but in a normalized, balanced market, not likely. So that's a tie down question. Number 5 is what we call expander questions. So tell me more. So they're telling you a story about something that they built in their house that they think's worth, $100,000. Their little sunroom that they or garden shed or something like that. And so you tell me more about that. Get them to talk about things, or use the words expand on that for me. Would you? Oh, that's interesting. Can you elaborate on that? Expander questions. Number 6, rapport builder questions. Oh, what's your dog's name? Oh, what year is your Mustang? The car, right? Like, is that 65 or 66? These are the questions when you walk into a listing or you see the buyer, you want to try and pick something out. Maybe it's what they're wearing, it's a watch they have on, or at the house, like I said, maybe it's the car that you saw in the driveway, or a piece of art that's on the wall, or it's a picture of a vacation that they were on. Get a rapport builder going. Get on that side with them right away. Rapport builder. Number 7, when they put up a barrier, stay on track and just use these 2 simple words. No problem. Don't fight them. Say, no problem. I don't think we're going to list tonight, Mike. I know we booked this appointment, but I don't think we're going to list tonight. No problem. Why don't you take me on a tour of your house right now and treat me as a cash buyer? No problem. Let's just do that. Okay, so you haven't fought with them. Number 8, if they ask something like, should I leave the drapes? Just simply say, I would. Sure, I would. Should I leave the fridge? Well, I would. Sure. Simple thing. When they hesitate, use the let's pretend, and then you make up a story about something that you've done in the past, right? So if they hesitate, like, I don't know if this is the right time to sell or buy, well, let's pretend that we're in a situation like one of my clients experienced and tell them a story about how it was either a positive experience or a negative. And then these are the bonus generic closing questions. Is that a yes then? Does that make sense? That's a favorite of mine. That comes from a guy named Tom Hopkins. And then the last one, would you agree? I know I've thrown a lot at you guys today. It's kind of like the fire hose, and we have a garden hose capacity to learn at times, but What I hope what we do this week is to take all this material that I've just kind of pushed your way, and that we can digest this over the course of next week and through the program and for the next, call it 3-6 months of your career. So this becomes internalized and natural for you. We're going to go into more detail specifically in some of the classes for these types of dialogues, because as I said before, I think knowing what to say, how to say it, and when to say it is so critical in the lead generation activities, the booking appointment activities, and the closing on contract activities that we face. If we master that, all the rest of this just becomes building out who you are as a salesperson. So I think that was my last slide here. If I could slide down. Yeah, it is. So Matt, if Matt is listening, Matt's going to come in and help us. And I'm going to actually just stop the recording if I can here. Stop share. Stop.